Why does the public know this? Why am I reading this? This is not a text I should be able to read. How do you excuse, seriously, how does anyone come up with an excuse for this? What is the line? I don't get it. I don't see how you excuse this. This is just absurd. Not long after, Waltz responded with 3 emojis: a fist, an American flag, and fire. Had they lost their phones or had they been stolen, the potential risk to national security would have been severe. Wow. So, Trump administration accidentally texted me its war plans. This is an article that got posted in the Atlantic today. So, basically, my understanding is, this Atlantic journalist was added to a Signal group chat. Signal is like Microsoft Teams, if you've used that, or Telegram, sort of. That sort of app. Or Slack. Added to a Signal group chat with Pete Hegseth, J.D. Vance, and others, where they were discussing, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, right, where they were discussing the planned bombings of Yemen, the bombings of the Houthis that happened earlier this week, or last week, I guess. Obviously, he was added before those bombings happened, so he knew about them in advance, which is just great stuff. You know, from the same party, and we'll get into this in a minute, that spent how long about Hillary Clinton's emails? Dude, this is so no, my camera's going out of focus. How long about Hillary Clinton's emails? Literally the whole time. Lock her up, all this Comey election over it. Anyway, not the point. The point is that they have now engaged in some of the most blatant, just like, I don't even know what to call it, flagrant misconduct, flagrant, lack of due diligence. They just don't care. They didn't care. They didn't care enough to make sure that their information about, like US strikes in other countries was kept secret, was kept appropriately secret. Possibly one of the most, like, I don't know. It seems to me, as like a layman, someone's never been in government, strikes that your military are conducting, these are like some of the top, you want these really secret. You don't want to be telling people about this stuff. I want your military to be doing its thing, generally. You don't want that getting out there. So I don't know what the excuse is here. I really don't. I really don't know how MAGA to spin up an excuse for this. We just got, and this is within 24 hours of us getting news that the tariff stuff is getting like dramatically scaled back as well. They've been spending how long coping? And I've actually got a brilliant screenshot to illustrate this. They've spent how long coping about how great these tariffs are going to be, only for Trump to turn around and say, "Oh yeah, it's just going to be reciprocal. We're going to be focusing on reciprocal levies. We're not going to be doing the broad tariff scheme that we were planning before." Yet they were that's past them all coping about the effects of the tariff. So running that back, and now this as well. I'm just sending this screenshot in a Discord channel so I can pull it up. That you totally uncoordinated thing here. The spicy chat earlier. Stylo posted the tariffs being scaled back tweet. I just put Lamfau, Sunday, lol. And then while that was all going on, Fuentes, literally exact same reaction. Just like complete broad agreement. Everyone that's not just a complete retarded Trump dick sucker, lib, lefty, commie, Nazi, or just literally just say, wow, this is fucking retarded. Isn't this fucking embarrassing for the people doing this and everyone supporting it? Isn't this really fucking embarrassing for you? Everyone just agrees. Everyone that's not a complete fucking retard just agrees. This is really fucking embarrassing. So how do they cope? What is the deflection? What is the cope? I truly don't know. I don't know how you keep coping at this point. When shit like this is happening, when literally key policies are being scaled back in real time after everyone else has told you they're a terrible policy, and you've been coping for months about how it's not a terrible policy, actually. And then the thing that you were upset about, basically the whole reason you elected this guy in the first place 8 years ago, he's now done the same thing. It's not exactly the same thing, to be clear. There are differences. There are nuances between the email scandal and the thing and the editor thing with the Atlantic, but whatever. Not really the point. Not really the point. It stands really. Thank you for the $2. If you text out war plans, you're low IQ. I mean, okay, so let's read the Atlantic article going over this stuff, shall we? The world found out shortly before 2 p.m. Eastern Time on March 15th that the United States was bombing Houthi targets across Yemen. I, however, knew 2 hours before the first bombs exploded that the attack might be coming. The reason I knew this is because Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, had texted me the war plan at 11:44 a.m. The plan included precise information about weapon packages, targets, and timing. This is going to require some explaining. Wow. Awesome. Cool stuff happening here. Really, really cool stuff happening here. The story technically begins shortly after the Hamas invasion of southern Israel in October 2023. Okay, do I really want the full story of how you came to get added into this group chat? I feel like you could probably give me the cliff notes here, right? This guy wants to feel way more important than he actually is. But whatever, I'll keep moving. An Iran-backed terror organization whose motto is God is great to America, to Israel, curse on the Jews, victory to Islam, soon launched attacks on Israel on international shipping. I disavow all that, by the way. I disavow all that. Creating havoc for global trade. Throughout 2024, the Biden administration was ineffective in countering the Houthi attacks. The incoming Trump administration promised a tougher response. This is where Pete Hegseth and I come in. On Tuesday, 11th of March, I received a connection request on Signal from a user identified as Michael Waltz. Signal is an open-source encrypted messaging service popular with journalists and others who seek more privacy than other text messaging services are capable of delivering. I assumed that the Michael Waltz in question was President Donald Trump's national security advisor. I did not assume, however, that the request was from the actual Michael Waltz. I have met him in the past, and though I didn't find it particularly strange that he might be reaching out to me, I did think it's somewhat unusual, given the Trump administration's contentious relationship with journalists, and Trump's periodic fixation on me specifically. It immediately crossed my mind that someone could be masquerading as Waltz in order to somehow entrap me. It is not at all uncommon these days for nefarious actors to try to induce journalists to share information that could be used against them. I accepted the connection request, hoping that this was the actual national security advisor and that he wanted to chat about Ukraine, Iran, or some other important matter. 2 days later, Thursday, at 4:28 p.m., I received notice that I was included in a Signal group chat. It was called the Houthi PC Small Group. A message to the group from Michael Waltz read as follows. Team, establishing a principals group for coordination on Houthis, particularly over the next 72 hours. My deputy Alex Wong is pulling together a tiger team at deputies/agency chief of staff level, following up from the meeting in the sit room this morning for action items we'll be sending out later this evening. Why does the public know this? Why am I reading this? This is not a text I should be able to read. Dude. The message continued. Please, spelt PLS, provide the best staff POC from your team for us to, I assume that's not people of color, for us to coordinate with over the next couple of days and over the weekend. Thanks. The term Principals Committee generally refers to a group of the most senior national security officials, including the Secretaries of Defense, State, and the Treasury, as well as the Director of the CIA. It should go without saying, but I'll say it anyway, that I've never been invited to a White House Principals Committee meeting, and that in my many years of reporting on national security matters, I have never heard of someone being convened over a commercial messaging app. Jesus, dude. 1 minute later, a person identified only as Ma, the Secretary of State, is Marco Antonio Rubio. Okay, man. Bro, Mike Needham for state. Apparently designating the current Chancellor of State Department as his representative. At that same moment, a signal user identified as J.D. Vance wrote Andy Baker for VP. 1 minute after that, T.G., presumably Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, or someone masquerading as her, wrote Joe Kent for DNI. 9 minutes later, Scott B., apparently Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, or someone spoofing his identity, wrote Dan Katz for Treasury. At 4:53 p.m., a user called Pete Hegseth wrote Dan Caldwell for DOD. And at 6:34 p.m., Brian wrote Brian McCormack for NSC. Dude, this is rough, man. This is so rough. They're all just, it's just the group chat. It's just the White House group chat got leaked. How? Why? Why? Like, how do you fuck up this bad? Why are you using Signal? How fucking lazy are you? How fucking lazy are you? What's the point of using Signal? Thank you for the $5, Ryle. It would be cooler if usernames were Trump assigned, Little Marco joins the chat, followed by Lion Ted Cruz. Okay. One more person responded. John Ratcliffe wrote at 5:24 p.m. with the name of a CIA official to be included in the group. I'm not publishing that name because that person is an active intelligence officer. It's just beyond the fucking pale, man. OPSEC, never heard of it. Thank you for the $5, Mikey Mai. Dude, this is just... How do you excuse... Seriously, how does anyone come up with an excuse for this? What is the line? I don't get it. I don't see how you excuse this. This is just absurd. It's like next level incompetence. It's like the thick of it tier shit. Do you know what I mean? Like there's been a massive irretrievable data loss, you know? Also, guys, I'm doing a goal right now, okay? 20 super chats, tier or higher, 2-hour goal, and I will stop using Signal for my group chat, okay? 20 tier super chats, and I stop using Signal for my group chat. I'm not publishing that name because that person is an active intelligence officer. I thought you guys wanted... Oh, yes, I saw that earlier. Oh, I thought you wanted transparency in government. At least they're being transparent, unlike you lying Dems. Because they're coordinating intelligence and military strikes in a commercial messaging app. That's transparency, apparently. And accidentally adding journalists. Fuck me, dude. Why don't they just do it in a bar? Why don't they just do all this like on a stage or something? Why don't they just walk through the street? Why don't we just have public officials walking through the street with a lot of security personnel, maybe a bubble over them, which puts speakers so you can hear all their conversations as they walk around. So like, every time Trump talks to someone, we hear the conversation. Yeah, every meeting's on Trump TV. Fuck it, why not? Fuck it, why not? I can't see any downsides to that. Especially not when there's the names of active intelligence officers involved. I can't possibly see any way this could ever go wrong. There is no possible way. How could this ever go wrong? There's literally nothing the government would ever want or need to keep secret ever. There's nothing the people would ever want the government to keep secret ever. Right? We just want to know everything. We want everyone to know everything all the time. That's transparency. Is when everyone knows everything all the time in a totally unfettered way. The principals had apparently assembled. In all, 18 individuals were listed as members of this group, including National Security Council officials, Steve Witkoff, President Trump's Middle East and Ukraine negotiator, Susie Wiles, the White House Chief of Staff, and someone identified only as SM, which I took to stand for Stephen Miller. I appeared on my own screen only as JG. That was the end of the Thursday text chain. After receiving the Waltz text connected to the Houthi PC small group, I consulted a number of colleagues. We discussed the possibility these texts were part of a disinformation campaign initiated by either a foreign intelligence service or, more likely, a media gadfly organization, the sort of group that attempts to place journalists in embarrassing positions and sometimes succeeds. I had strong doubts that this text group was real because I could not believe that the national security leadership of the United States would communicate on Signal about imminent war plans. I also could not believe that the national security advisor to the president would be so reckless as to include the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic in such discussions with senior US officials up to and including the vice president. I can understand why you would be skeptical of that upon being added to the group chat. I can understand why you might have misgivings about that. That makes sense to me. The next day, things got even stranger. At 8:05 a.m. on Friday, March 14th, Michael Waltz texted the group. Team, you should have a statement of conclusions with taskings per the president's guidance this morning in your high side inboxes. High side in government parlance refers to classified computer and communication systems. State and DoD, we developed suggested notification lists for regional allies and partners. Joint Staff is sending this a more specific sequence of events in the coming days. We'll work with DoD to ensure COS, OVP, and POTUS are briefed. At this point, a fascinating policy discussion commenced. The account labeled JD Vance responded at 8:16 a.m., I assume. Yep. Team, I am out for the day going to an economic event in Michigan, but I think we are making a mistake. Vance was indeed in Michigan that day. The Vance account goes on to state, 3% of US trade runs through the Suez. 40% of European trade does. There is a real risk that the public doesn't understand this or why it's necessary. The strongest reason to do this is, as POTUS said, to send a message. The Vance account goes on to then make a noteworthy statement, considering that the Vice President has not deviated publicly from Trump's position on virtually any issue. I'm not sure the President is aware how inconsistent this is with his message on Europe right now. There's a further risk that we see a moderate to severe spike in oil prices. I am willing to support the consensus of the team and keep these concerns to myself, but there is a strong argument for delaying this a month, doing the messaging work on why this matters, seeing where the economy is, etc. Dude. It's just so crazy. It's so crazy. It's just like Trump is just like, no, strike the fucking Houthis. Then Vance is like, guys, listen, I know Trump's saying strike the Houthis. I don't know that our base is going to like it. Okay, guys, maybe give it a month. Maybe let's, prime the ground a bit. Prime people a little. Explain why the Houthis suck. Explain why we like the Suez Canal. And then let's think about striking the Houthis. It's a really bad time. I know that's what the president's saying. I know that's what the president's saying. If you guys all agree, I'll shut up. But I think we should try and talk to him. Dude. It's just so upset, because you would hope that you elect leaders that can sit in a meeting and can have a discussion and come to a good decision together, right? That's like the hope, right? I feel like as someone who lives in a democratic country, not that your vice president has a different agenda to your president and is running around playing games in the background behind his back, trying to convince people or trying to get people on side to voice criticisms to the president or saying, or if you guys aren't going to stick with me, I'll fall in line. You would hope that any concerns Vance had were addressed in the meeting about this, where this little group was thought up. You would hope. But it wasn't. It's being done as little games in the background. Is it even JD being the voice of reason, though? Like, what do we actually not like about the Houthi strikes? This just feels like JD basically being like, isolationist. Yeah, he's far more aware of how things work. I agree with that. Yeah, he's not the voice of reason. He's smarter than Trump. That's certain. That's 100%. And what's happening here is he has the goal of basically... the way I always look at Vance stuff is like, he's not really there as part of Trump's agenda. He's there for Teal. He's there for Teal. He's there for, you know, fucking Moldbug Yarvin, whatever his name is. He's there for that whole, you know, little group. So Vance's decision making is all, for me, filtered through this lens of deregulation, isolationism, tax breaks. Basically, that's how I filter all of his actions through. So when I see this, all I see is basically, we're helping Europe. We don't want Europe to get more powerful. We're spending money to help Europe when we don't want Europe to be powerful. We want to be powerful. That's basically what I think is going on in Vance's head here, based on what he's saying. Whereas Trump is much more like, yeah, Trump always comes off more like, I don't know if he's like a clinical narcissist, obviously, but like, you know, kind of that vibe, you know, where it's very much focused on just doing big stuff that, you know, impresses a crowd of people, basically. So he'll get on social media, he'll get on Truth Social and say, I'm bombing the fuck out of the Houthis because a load of Republicans, a load of dipshit, like, you know, people in trailer parks, so, you know, not ask any questions, you just go, yeah, fuck the terrorists. Yeah, fuck it. Let's go Trump. He's bombing the fuck out of the terrorists, and that's basically all he's looking for. Have you read on Moldbug's neomonarchism shit? I haven't read any of it. I've just listened to it explained by many people. I don't feel like I ever will read it. I don't think it's probably interesting enough to justify. Looked like self-sucking, you know, like rationalist type. What would you call it? Drivel. It's like, it gives me the same vibe as Ayla, you know? It gives me the same... Moldbug, Curtis Yarvin, give me the same vibe as, like, Ayla and Richard Hanania. It's like the exact same types of people. These, you know, from a liberal city, you know, San Francisco or New York or whatever, from some liberal city, but they're like, oh, I'm not like the other tech libs in this city. I'm not like the other tech libs in the city. I think black people are genetically... I'm saying what they think. I'm saying what they claim they think. I think black people are genetically... I'm saying what they think. Genetically inferior. I'm not like the other libs. I'm not like the other libs. I think the government should be like couped by some fascist leader. Because I'm not like the other libs. That's them, basically. That's all of these people. It's fucking unbearable. That's Ayla. That's Eliezer Yudkowsky. That's the guy Ayla was dating, the tooth guy. That's who else? Sam Altman. Grimes Elon. Yep. Obviously Teal, all that. Although Teal, I don't even know. Teal is like a different breed, man. Teal is like totally different to the rest of them. Teal is like an actual... Like, you know, he is like the shadowy billionaire that every conspiracy theory is about, basically. He's like the new Epstein, really. Not in like, I don't necessarily know that he fucks kids, but he's like the new Epstein, and like he is just very stereotypical, like archetypal, you know, evil billionaire. Like he literally has a whole thing about wanting to inject young people's blood to stay younger. Wants to live to 120 by injecting growth hormones. Wants to build a Rapture from Bioshock out in the ocean. Runs like a defense and intelligence company. Like, you know, it's like every possible point you could possibly map on to like evil billionaire is like in there for Teal. Anyway, back to the article. Yeah, Lex Friedman's in there, 100%. I mean, I don't know if Lex Friedman's in there. I see Lex Friedman as just more like a total Russian bot, to be honest. I don't even see him as like a human. He is just like a Russian drone. He's like unmanned. He's like not sentient. He's just there to be Russian. Anyway. So yeah, Vance was trying to push back, and then he was like, "I'll shut up if everyone else agrees with Trump." A person identified in Signal as Joe Kent, Trump's nominee to run the National Counterterrorism Center, is named Joe Kent, wrote 822. Why do you look like younger than 8 now, if that's true, but sure. There is nothing time-sensitive driving the timeline. We'll have the exact options in a month. Then at 8:26 a.m., a message landed in my Signal app from the user John Ratcliffe. The message contained information that might be interpreted as related to actual current intelligence operations. At 8:27, a message arrived from the Pete Hegseth account. VP, I understand your concerns and fully support you raising with POTUS. Important considerations, most of which are tough to know until they play out, economy, Ukraine peace, Gaza, etc. I think messaging is going to be tough no matter what. Nobody knows who the Houthis are, which is why we would need to stay focused. 1, Biden failed, and 2, Iran funded. The Hegseth message goes on to state, waiting a few weeks or months does not fundamentally change the calculus. 2 immediate risks on waiting. 1, this leaks and we look indecisive. Wait. Okay. How's that -5? That's not -5. Okay, so what else have we got here? Israel takes action first. Well, Gaza ceasefire falls apart and we don't get to start this on our own terms. We can manage both. We're prepared to execute. And if I had a final go or no-go vote, I believe we should. This is not about the Houthis. I see it as about 2 things. Nessie does the same, but ironically all the time. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Thank you for the $2, Ryle. You and Aiden should pull the haircut fund. Didn't Aiden just get a haircut like yesterday? Like 2 days ago. 2, Israel takes action first, or Gaza ceasefire falls apart, and we don't get to start this on our own terms. We can manage both. We are prepared to execute. And if I had final go or no-go vote, I believe we should. This is not about the Houthis. I see it as 2 things. 1, restoring freedom of navigation, a core national interest. And 2, re-establish deterrence, which Biden created. But we can easily pause, and if we do, I will do all we can to enforce 100% OPSEC. What? We can easily pause. If we do, I will do all we can to enforce 100% OPSEC. Dude. In leaked messages. It's just beyond parody. You know, we'd look really dumb if this leaked, but I'm gonna try my best to ensure 100% OPSEC in the leaked Signal group chat that you accidentally added the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic to. Awesome stuff, guys. Really awesome stuff. This is not a total fucking clown show at all. A few minutes later, the Michael Waltz account posted a lengthy note about trade figures and the limited capabilities of European navies. Whether it's now or several weeks from now, it will have to be the United States that reopens these shipping lanes. Per the President's request, we are working with the DoD and state to determine how to compile the cost associated and levy them on the Europeans. The account identified as JD Vance addressed a message at 8:45 to @PeteHegseth. If you think we should do it, let's go. I just hate bailing Europe out again. The administration has argued that America's European allies benefit economically from the US Navy's protection of international shipping lanes. So yeah, that's exactly what I was saying about Vance, right? This guy's way more isolationist, way more committed to isolationism than Trump. The user identified as Hegseth responded 3 minutes later, VP, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic. But Mike is correct. We're the only ones on the planet, on our side of the ledger, who can do this. Nobody even close. Question is timing. I feel like now is as good as any, given POTUS directive to reopen shipping lanes. I think we should go, but POTUS still retains 24 hours of decision space. At this point, the previously silent SM joined the conversation. As I heard it, the president was clear. Green light, but we soon make clear to Egypt and Europe what we expect in return. We also need to figure out how to enforce such a requirement, e.g., if Europe doesn't remunerate, then what? The US successfully restores freedom of navigation at great cost. There needs to be some further economic gains extracted in return. There are the full screenshots here. That message from SM, presumably President Trump's confidant Stephen Miller, the Deputy White House Chief of Staff, or someone playing Stephen Miller, effectively shut down the conversation. What was that one? Yeah. The last text of the day came from Pete Hegseth, who wrote at 9:46 a.m. Agree. After reading this chain, I recognized that the conversation possessed a high degree of verisimilitude. Verisimilitude, I think that is. The texts, in their word choice and arguments, sound as if they were written by the people who purportedly sent them, or by a particularly adept AI generator. I was still concerned this could be a disinformation operation or a simulation of some sort, and I remained mystified that no one in the group seemed to have noticed my presence. But if it was a hoax, the quality of mimicry and the level of foreign policy insight were impressive. It was the next morning, Saturday, March 15th, when the story became truly bizarre. At 11:44 a.m., the account labeled Pete Hegseth posted in Signal a team update. I will not quote from this update, or from certain other subsequent texts. The information contained in them, if they had been read by an adversary of the United States, could conceivably have been used to harm American military and intelligence personnel, particularly in the broader Middle East, Central Command's area of responsibility. Okay. What I will say, in order to illustrate the shocking recklessness of the Signal conversation, is that the Hegseth post contained operational details of forthcoming strikes on Yemen, including information about targets, weapons the US would be deploying, and attack sequencing. I just can't understand it, man. I truly cannot understand it. This is such a crazy fuck up, man. It's so absurd. The only person to reply from the update was Hegseth. Reply to the update from Hegseth was the person identified as the vice president. I will say a prayer for victory, Vance wrote. 2 other users subsequently added the prayer emoji. Dude. This is such a fucking circus. It's crazy, man. It's so absurd. According to the lengthy Hegseth texts, the first detonations in Yemen would be felt 2 hours hence, at 1:45 Eastern Time. So I waited in my car in a supermarket parking lot. If this signal chat was real, I reasoned, Houthi targets would soon be bombed. About 11:55, I checked X and searched Yemen. Explosions were then being heard across Sanaa, the capital city. Dude. That must be so crazy. Imagine that. Dude. You're like sitting there for like, a day. You've been in there since last night. You're keeping like a little eye on it. You're like, is this real? Then you go and sit there and you're like, okay, well, time to check. You actually see like the bombs being fired. The bombs being fucking dropped in Yemen live. People reacting to their fucking homes being blown up and shit. Live. When you literally you knew it was happening. That's crazy. Dude, the emojis. Oh my god. I went back to the Signal channel at 1:48. Michael Waltz had provided the group an update. Again, I won't quote from this text, except to make note that he described the operation as an amazing job. 1 minute. A few minutes later, John Ratcliffe wrote, a good start. Not long after, Waltz responded with 3 emojis, a fist, an American flag, and fire. Others soon joined in, including Marco Rubio, who wrote, good job, Pete and your team, and Susie Wiles, who texted, kudos to all, most particularly those in theatre and CENTCOM. Really great, God bless. Steve Witkoff responded with 5 emojis, 2 hands praying, a flexed bicep, and 2 American flags. TG responded, great work and effects. The after-action discussion included assessments of damage done, including likely death of a specific individual. The Houthi-run Yemen Health Ministry reported at least 53 people were killed in the strikes, a number that has not been independently verified. On Sunday, Waltz appeared on ABC's This Week and contrasted the strikes with the Biden administration's more hesitant approach. These were not kind of pinprick and back and these not kind of sorry. These were not kind of pinprick back and forth what ultimately proved to be feckless attacks, he said. This was an overwhelming response that actually targeted multiple Houthi leaders and took them out. The Signal group chat, I concluded, was almost certainly real. Having come to this realization, one that seemed nearly impossible in the hours before, I removed myself from the Signal group chat, understanding that this would trigger an automatic notification to the group's creator, Michael Waltz, and that I had left. No one in the chat seemed to notice I was there, and I received no subsequent questions about why I left, or, more to the point, who I was. Earlier today, I emailed Waltz, sent him a message on his Signal account. I also wrote to Pete Hegseth, John Ratcliffe, Tulsi Gabbard, and other officials. In an email, I outlined some of my questions. Is the Houthi PC small group a genuine signal thread? Did they know I was included in this group? Was I, on the off chance, included on purpose? If not, who did they think I was? Did anyone realize who I was when I was added, or when I removed myself from the group? The senior Trump administration officials use Signal regularly for sensitive discussions. Do the officials believe that the use of such channel would endanger American personnel? Brian Hughes, the spokesman for National Security Council, responded 2 hours later, confirming the veracity of the Signal group. This appears to be an authentic message chain, and we were reviewing how an inadvertent number was added to the chain, Hughes wrote. The thread is a demonstration of the deep and thoughtful policy coordination between senior officials. The ongoing success of the Houthi operation demonstrates that there were no threats to troop or national security. Except there was. Because you were using Signal, a commercial messaging app, and you added someone random to the group chat. So that does present a risk, actually. That does present quite a significant risk to US personnel, just by nature of the story that's happening right now. It's just so dumb. Okay. William Martin, a spokesperson for Vance, said that despite the impression created by the texts, the Vice President is fully aligned with the President. The Vice President's first priority is always making sure that the President's advisors are adequately briefing him on the substance of their internal deliberations, he said. Vice President Vance unequivocally supports his administration's foreign policy. The President and the Vice President have had subsequent conversations about this matter and are in complete agreement. Wow. I have never seen a breach quite like this. It is not uncommon for national security officials to communicate on Signal. The app is used primarily for meeting planning and other logistical matters, not for detailed and highly confidential discussions of a pending military action. And of course, I've never heard of an instance in which a journalist has been invited to such a discussion. Conceivably, Waltz, by coordinating a national security-related action over Signal, may have violated provisions of the Espionage Act, which governs the handling of national defense information, according to several national security lawyers interviewed by my colleague Shane Harris for this story. Harris asked them to consider a hypothetical scenario in which a senior US official creates a Signal thread for the express purpose of sharing information with cabinet officials about an active military operation. He did not show them the actual Signal messages or tell them specifically what had occurred. All of these lawyers said that a US official should not establish a Signal thread in the first place. Information about an active operation would presumably fit the law's definition of national defense information. The Signal app is not approved by the government for sharing classified information. The government has its own systems for that purpose. If officials want to discuss military activity, they should go into a specifically designed space known as a Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility, or SCIF. Most cabinet-level national security officials have one installed in their home, or communicate only on approved government equipment, the lawyer said. Normally, cell phones are not permitted inside a SCIF, which suggests that these officials were sharing information about an active military operation. They could have been moving around in public. Had they lost their phones or had they been stolen, the potential risk to national security would have been severe. Wow. Hegseth, Ratcliffe, and other cabinet-level officials presumably would have the authority to declassify information. Several of the national security lawyers noted that the hypothetical officials on the Signal chain might claim they had declassified the information they shared. But this argument rings hollow, they caution, because Signal is not an authorized venue for sharing information of such a sensitive nature, regardless of whether it's been stamped top secret or not. There was also another problem. Waltz set some of the messages in the Signal group to disappear after 1 week, and some after 4. That raises questions about whether the officials may have violated federal records law. Text messages about official acts are considered records that should be preserved. Dude. This is just so insane. Under the records law applicable to the White House and federal agencies, all government employees are prohibited from using electronic messaging applications such as Signal for official business, unless those messages are promptly forwarded to or copied to an official government account. Jason R. Barron, a professor at University of Maryland, the former director of litigation at the National Archives and Records Administration, told Harris. Intentional violations of these records are a basis for disciplinary actions. Additionally, agencies such as the Department of Defense restrict electronic messaging containing classified information to classified government networks and or networks with government-approved encrypted features, Barron said. Several former U.S. officials told Harris that they had used Signal to share unclassified information and discuss routine matters, particularly when traveling overseas, without access to U.S. government systems, but they knew never to share classified or sensitive information. Okay. I think we get the idea here. It is worth noting that Donald Trump, as a candidate for president and as president, repeatedly and vociferously demanded that Hillary Clinton be imprisoned for using a private email server for business, for official business when she was Secretary of State. It is also worth noting that Trump was indicted in 2023 for mishandling classified documents, but the charges were dropped after his election. Wow. Wow. Awesome stuff here. So I saw Hillary Clinton tweeted here, "You've got to be kidding me," with eyes emoji. And I mean, fair enough. She kind of won. Best place to hide a dead body is page 2 of the Atlantic magazine, because no one ever goes there. Posted by Elon Musk and reposted by Trump. I assume this is from before today. So it's from like last week or something. Or is this the actual response? Is this the actual Cope response? There's no way. Wait, yeah, this is a Babylon Bee article mocking this right now. Dude. There's no way this works, right? There's literally no way this works. So Trump got questioned about this. Let's have a look at the clip.
Mr. President, your reaction to the story in The Atlantic that said that some of your top cabinet officials and aides had been discussing very sensitive material through Signal and included an Atlantic reporter for that. What is your response to that?
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan
Oh my god, it's so quiet.
of the
Aides had been discussing very sensitive material through Signal and included an Atlantic reporter for that. What is your response to that?
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of the Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using Signal to coordinate on sensitive materials and
Having to do with what? Having to do with what? What were they talking
Dude,
about?
like, just feigning ignorance. Feigning ignorance. You realize it's a bigger indictment if you don't know this is happening, right? The idea that you didn't know this happened until just now. That actually should be a bigger indictment. That's worse than you knowing about it when you're here. It's like so pathetic and avoidant. It's like, I don't want to answer this question, so I'm just going to pretend I don't know what they're talking about. It's not even like good strategy. Like, his audience will eat anything up. It just makes him look pathetic. It is so just stupid. He could say anything here, and the retards who are still totally bought in will still be totally bought in tomorrow. Yet he chooses to be embarrassing and avoidant. This is the same answer he gives to everything he doesn't want to answer.
The Houthis, you mean the attack on the Houthis? Right. Well, it couldn't have been very effective because the attack was very effective. I can tell you that. I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time.
You got lucky because it was, you know, someone from the Atlantic that gives the slightest fuck about America and American personnel. So they didn't go and immediately send all the information that was being shared in that group chat to Houthis. However, if it was someone that was less responsible, unfortunately, you might have had less chance. Like, let's say, for instance, instead of it being someone from the Atlantic that got added there, let's say it was literally any pro-Trump alternative media cocksucker. Well, those people have no morals or principles. Unlike mainstream journalists, who do have morals and principles and care about their countries, these alternative media fucks have no morals or principles and would do anything for money. So they would have gone straight to the Houthis, been like, oh, how much do you want for this? How much will you give me for this information? How much will you give me for the locations of American troops and the types of weapons they'll be shipping? But thankfully, it was a liberal journalist from the Atlantic, a mainstream publication. So you know that this is an educated, informed, intelligent person with principles who believes in truth, accuracy, and Western values. So they made the responsible decision. And not some disgusting fucking traitor like anyone that supports Trump. Wow, crazy that. Crazy stuff.